My name is Rosina Bakari. I am a survivor of incest and childhood sexual abuse. But today is not the day when we come to talk about my pain. Today, we're going to talk about America's problem. Thank you. Consider the fact that it is never appropriate for an adult to use any child for sexual gratification. Consider the fact that an adult should never intimately touch or talk to a child in any sexually provocative way. Consider the fact that an adult should not expose children to sexually provocative or intimate acts via real life or media. Consider the fact that people should not be forced into any physical contact by any person, regardless of age, relationship, gender, or sexual orientation of the victim or violator. Consider those facts. Then consider the stats. Adults, primarily male and heterosexual, will molest, sexually assault, or rape 1 in 4 girls before they reach the age of 18. Adults, primarily male and heterosexual, will molest, sexually assault, or rape 1 in 6 boys before they reach the age of 18. The majority of these violators will be well known to their victims. The victims will likely be their parents, their siblings, their uncles, their coaches, pastors, teachers, or someone close to the child. These violators will victimize multiple children, not just one. The violators are likely to victimize these children who have already been subjected to previous sexual abuse by another adult. These adults will molest, assault, or rape half of their victims before they reach the age of 13. The effects of the betrayal of these children will leave such a great mark of confusion, guilt, shame, and a distortion of reality that 85% of these children will never tell during their childhood. 50% of these children will never tell during their lifetime. America, we have a problem. Each child who is victimized by an adult will have to discover a way to live with the betrayal, the violation, the fear, depending on their own internal mechanisms. What is their self-esteem? What is their mental capacity? What is their belief in a higher power? What is their hope for living? They will have to rely on their own internal mechanisms. But even the best of their internal mechanisms will still have to be negotiated with factors far beyond their control, such as the age of onset. They don't get to determine that. The lower the age, the more internal mechanisms they need, clearly. The relationship to the violator. The closer the relationship to the violator, the more negative the outcomes. 50% of the violators are parents. The level of contact. Outcomes are more severe when a contact is more severe. Your healing path will be different if it's molestation than if it's violent rape. The frequency of the contact. The more regular the contact, the more severe. A person who's been molested once is going to have a higher likelihood of healing or less painful healing than someone who is molested, raped, or assaulted on a regular basis. The number of violators. Only about half of the survivors of childhood sexual abuse are fortunate enough to have one violator. The average number of violators is 3 per survivor. And what are the family dysfunctions? It's confusing to know sometimes, in a very bizarre and distorted way, whether the sexual abuse is the symptom or the problem. For some survivors, the sexual assault or abuse or molestation is the least of their worry. If there's neglect and hunger or abuse, violence in a family, worrying about their parents, et cetera, so it's difficult to tell sometimes if the abuse is the problem or if it's the symptom of other problems. Again, depending on those external factors, the outcomes may be very different. Even still, outcomes that are based on a child's internal mechanisms, given all of the factors that are beyond his or her control, still come down to 3 major issues, research tells us. Did they tell? Were they believed if they did tell? And were they supported in their healing? Here's where the numbers get ugly. We already said only about 15% will tell during their childhood. Of those 15%, they're not always supported. Sometimes they are blamed, sometimes they are not believed. So the numbers of really coming out with the sense of self, a great sense of self, decreases with the statistics. Did they tell? Were they believed if they did tell? And were they supported in their healing? Many children, assuming that they do tell and assuming that they are believed, still, many children have to continue living with their perpetrators. Sometimes that's even a legal decision. But whether children tell or don't tell, whether they were victims of relatives, family, friends, or the occasional stranger, whether they were under the age of 8 or closer to the age of 18, they will share one characteristic in common with me. They will become an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse. They will become the invisible victim, not by just their own silence, but by society's denial, by society's paradigms, and by society's ignorance. Estimates of the number of adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse and incest are between 40 and 60 million. Let me put that in further perspective for you. Approximately 2 million people in this country have HIV or have died of AIDS. 19 million people in this country have asthma. 25 million people have diabetes. The number of survivors supersedes that of HIV, asthma, and diabetes combined. We don't have a commercial for that. America, we have a problem. Let's talk about the denial. You cannot fully acknowledge the problem of child sexual abuse and ignore the survivors of it. We all become adult survivors. But somehow we deal with prevention and then we kind of disappear as we age, as if the problem resolves itself. You cannot focus all of your attention on prevention and ignore the cure or the healing process. Even the best child prevention has to include starting with healthy adults. Is there too much at stake, I wonder? Or are there too many stakeholders? The only time the issue is addressed is in high-profile cases that come and go, while 40 million survivors remain invisible. Are we only willing to address abuse from a distance, where we can talk about preventing it because it makes us feel good? But we lose sight of the fight and have to live with when we have to live with the knowledge that we have failed a child, even when, or especially when, that child now becomes an adult. We put our heads under the pillow and we sweep the problem under the rug and say, hush, hush. Afraid to acknowledge the family dysfunction, afraid to admit our American failure, hiding from our own cultural shame. So the only acceptable place that we have to take our pain is to a paid listener who charges a hefty hourly fee to keep our secret. We have done a remarkable job with prevention because we have called on community and families to take responsibility. We told them what to look for. We told them what to do. We told them what to say. We told them who to tell. But we have yet to extend those same resources and outreach to adult survivors. We have to change that. America, we have a problem. Let's talk about ignorance. In the same way that we were once ignorant about the potential for abuse, we remain ignorant about the important factors related to healing. We live with the myths and assumptions that childhood trauma is insignificant, or that it should be if you're an adult. Once you're an adult, you get to control your own destiny. The best way to move forward is to forgive and... So we've heard that before. We're ignorant of the long-term effects of childhood trauma. However, we were also once ignorant about corporate punishment. We thought that was good for a child. Research has shown us otherwise. We don't recommend that anymore. And we fight against that now. I also happen to grow up in a time, maybe half of you remember, remember not just when we had tube TVs, but when I grew up, we had 6 channels on television. 3 of them was called UHF. Most of you don't know what that means, right? And UHF only really came in if somebody usually held the antenna and moved it around. So, but at that time, of those 6 channels, only 6 channels on, all of them showed advertisements for cigarettes. And cigarettes were cool and slick and sleek. They showed women in ads, they showed men in ads, they showed camels in ads, right? Because we thought that was cool and acceptable. And then the research came and said it's not. It's not cool and it's not healthy. And we can't promote it. So we are relying on a research to turn us around and put us on a healthier path for survivors as well. And the research is coming in. One of the latest pieces of research by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and I think Buzz was mentioning it earlier, shows a relationship between adverse childhood experiences and a lot of health-related negativity. Anything from unwanted pregnancies to heart disease and a whole lot of stuff in between there. And it's also showing that there's a relationship between adverse childhood experiences. So if there's addiction or something else going on in a home, then there's more likely for some sort of abuse to be going on as well. So the research is starting to come in. We're starting to look at more neurological research on adult survivors. It's not pretty. And it's not easy to read, trust me. But it's showing us that the brain is actually different. The way the brain works in adult survivors is literally different than the way that it works in non-survivors. So the data is coming in. Research shows that there are neurological compromises when abuse occurs, especially at those early ages of onset or when abuse is continual. We know too much about the connection between childhood experiences and healthy choices to continue to ignore the data and ignore the survivors. We cannot proceed in ignorance. We have too much to do, and we have to do a much better job at getting the information from the journals and the professional offices into our communities in the same way that we did about child care and the same way that we did about or do about health issues such as smoking. Let's talk about America's paradigms or way of knowing in the world. We live in a world or in a country or in a space where the strong survives. We like things that are tough and rugged. We love our independence. We relish in it. We live in a world that tells us it's good to be on your own. It's good to be able to do it by yourself. We also live in a world where the pursuit of happiness and the appearance of happiness is more important than the experience or state of happiness. So we have two major things going on. Make it look good and be strong or independent while doing it. That's really bad news for survivors. Nearly $10 billion was spent last year on cosmetics, not just makeup, but cosmetic procedures such as Botox or filling in lips or getting eyelashes. Last time I got a pedicure, in fact, a lady spent 10 minutes asking me if I wanted eyelashes. Like, why? I have some. By the time you learn how to use your new electronic device, advertisement will put you in a market to replace it. We live in a state, not Iowa State, but it's the state of being. We live in a state where what we sell you is dissatisfaction. So now we have something else in the pot. Be strong. Make yourself look happy, even if you're not. And just in case you get there, we have to sell you back your dissatisfaction. Because we believe in the pursuit of happiness, not the state of happiness. This is really problematic. And one of the things when I do survivor work that I remind them when we all complain about how abnormal we feel, we don't feel normal. I finally get it. It took me a really long time to get it. Like, that's a good thing. That's good, because what's out there that we're selling for normal really isn't working for normal people. So the way that works in terms of the, where the survivor then gets overlooked is when we're trying to heal in a paradigm where even the normal isn't really healthy, it becomes even more problematic. But that's confusing for us because we never got a chance to be normal, so it just looks and feels like it's us, right? Now, I'm not against enhancing any area of your life with finances, whether it's, I like my technology too. I like it. It's a good thing. I'm just not, and Lord knows I spend enough time in the gym trying to stay fit. So I'm not against any of those things. However, I'm suggesting that when we are entrenched in a culture where self-satisfaction is not the norm, then victimization gets lost in a paradigm. People don't see you as a victim. People just see you as a loser. So what happens to these silent and invisible now adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse? What happens to the survivor turned loser? Guess what? If you haven't figured it out already, we become your professor. We become your parents, your spouses. We become your accountants, your doctors, your classmates, your therapists, your checkout clerk, your waitress, your favorite actor, your repairman, your favorite singer. We become your best friend. We become your fitness trainer. We become your technician. We become the person sitting beside you. We become the person on the bus, the person on the street corner. We become. Because survivors do harness the resilience of the human spirit. They break through the barriers of the mind and cross barriers of fear, pull themselves up, and reserve their place in society, at the table, and play their role in the classroom, on the court, around the office, the boardroom, and yes, even the bedroom. But they also sit in silence, never fully partaking of the feast because they are already full on trauma. And we keep quiet about some very important things, like the fact that anger is something that we constantly manage. Triggers are usually experienced in silence so as not to disturb the environment. The thought of no longer existing is common. We want so badly for someone to make it right for us because healing just feels too hard. We still don't feel normal. And we quit therapy because it hurts too much. It's not a magic pill. It doesn't always make things better, and sometimes therapy makes it worse. Can I give you a hug? Even if you earn a PhD in psychology, publish academic work, earn a black belt in Taekwondo, stay married for over 21 years, homeschool your children, run marathons, and write poetry, you can still live with post-traumatic stress from being an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Abuse may not kill you, but success won't cure you either. In spite of our resilience, whether we are students or doctors, we still come with some frailty. Survivors have more health-related issues, including HIV, obesity, and heart disease. Survivors are overpopulated in prison. Survivors have difficulty regulating emotions. This is a neurological issue, not just an emotional issue. Survivors are more likely to report use of drugs and drug abuse. Survivors are more likely to experience mental health issues, particularly depression, eating disorders, and dissociative disorders. Survivors are more likely to quit college and have lower GPAs. Survivors are more likely to have unwanted teenage pregnancy. And survivors even earn less income on average than non-survivors, probably due to some of those other factors we just mentioned. So what do we need? What are we asking for? We still need our childhood needs met. Any good theory of psychology will tell you that. Freud, Erikson, Maslow, you will get stuck. You have to have those childhood needs met. We as adults have the same needs as children, same needs as we had as children. Basic needs of safety and belonging still have to be met. They are essential to the quality of our mental health. Whether you are 15 years old or 50 years old, you need your safety needs met, and you need your sense of belonging met. Too many survivors have never experienced a sense of safety or belonging. Too many survivors have never experienced quality mental health. So the same thing that we say, the research shows that we need as children, we need as adults. We need to be able to tell, we need to be believed, and we need to be supported in our healing. You cannot heal in secret. You cannot heal in silence. We have survived. We need help to thrive. We are ready to break our silence. We are ready to lift our heads. We are not asking for permission, but we are hoping for support. Because if you could follow the tracks of our tears, you would be glad that we are finally here. My name is Rosina Bakari, and I am a survivor of incest and childhood sexual abuse. Thank you.